All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another webinar in our monthly series. For those who have not had the chance to meet, my name is Dan Hammaker. I am the head of chapter for the New York City chapter at Products That Count. My day job is also in product. I work as a senior director of product management at Intap, building B2B software for some large professional and financial services institutions. Today, luckily, we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be covering a much more interesting topic, discussing how to be more efficient as a product manager with AI. Just within my own team, across a lot of the other networking opportunities that I have with folks in and around product, I'm hearing this come up more and more often. I know a lot of us are being encouraged to use AI to be more efficient. We know that's the wave of the future, but how best to do that isn't always clear. So we brought in an expert today to give us some tips. I am very, very happy to introduce Spencer Jack, the co-founder of Cardagraph, a company dedicated to solving this problem, or at least working to solve this problem for product managers. Spencer, thank you so much for making the time to join our community today. Really happy to have you on board. Why don't you take a few minutes to introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. First of all, Dan, stop selling yourself short, man. I would love to hear all about your profession. I think maybe you need to do one of these presentations for everyone. But thank you for the intro and the kind words. Like you said, I'm Spencer. I helped co-found Cardagraph about 6 years ago now. And what Cardagraph is, I mean, I'm sure you'll learn more throughout the presentation, and feel free to go to cardagraph.com. But what we do is product road mapping. Think tools like Product Board, AHA, Jira Advanced Roadmaps. But we've been able to add AI and actual data there to help automate away, between 20 and 50% of the work that product managers are having to do in the roadmap, so that you can be more efficient, more effective, in the places that really count. So that is kind of the high level view here. Dan, anything else, or you want me just to dive in?
Yeah, just a couple of housekeeping things. So, we're going to be online here for about an hour. We're going to be going through a discussion that Spencer and I have been discussing around this topic. We would love for this to be interactive. So if you have questions or comments throughout, please feel free to drop those into our chat at any point. For anything that we don't get to or things that come up for you throughout, we'll also have a little bit of time at the end reserved for Q&A, where we can dive into anything that we've not yet covered. But with that, let's dive into the topic at hand. So, kind of laid this out, right? But we've got an overarching problem. We've got people, product managers who have a lot of day-to-day tasks. This is a time poor set of professionals. We're pulled into a lot of meetings. We've got a ton of stakeholders that we need to juggle. Now we've got this great opportunity to use a brand new set of tools to help us be a little bit more efficient. So I know, Spencer, you've got some thoughts on the nature of this problem and how it manifests. Let me turn it over to you to introduce that for us.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, again, thanks for having me, Dan. Setting the problem up, like he said, we're all getting pushed to use AI more, and all our tools are adding AI into it, right? They're being able to, Product Board Pulse, I think, is a new one where they're able to go through your customer insights, your customer feedback, and really understand, what the problems are, and help raise things to the top, which is great, super powerful, super helpful for us, right? As product leaders. But what is, there are a couple more glaring issues, that have historically been overlooked by the tools that we have. And let me go ahead and pull up a quick couple of things to share with you guys. So obviously, AI is an important part of what our everyday life has come to be. You have executives saying, "Hey, we need to be more efficient." You have CFOs saying that we got to squeeze the most we can out of people, right? Which is frustrating in its own way. But what's more frustrating is not being able to really use the tools in the way that you would like to. And so, what we've built at Cardagraph, again, you'll kind of learn a little bit throughout, but I want to focus more on the problems that we're having, the problems that AI and tools like Apollo and Product Board and Cardagraph are, what we're doing to help solve and alleviate these problems. So you guys could probably imagine there's a lot of data and research out there that we've been able to gather at Cardagraph, both from our customer base as well as broad ranges of product leaders, from associate product managers up to CPOs of public companies that we've included here. And what we learned is that 97% of all product managers spend over 20% of their week and 20% of their month on roadmap updating, right? So this means things like meeting with engineering and hearing where they're at, getting status updates, right? One of our customers actually I don't want to name drop because I don't want any legal teams to get mad at me. But one of our customers is one of the largest restaurant chains in America, one of the most recognizable. And if you look at my bio, my favorite one. Uh, and what their problem has been is, they obviously, everyone has tech teams now. It's not just software companies. Everyone is building software. And their problem as a restaurant is that they were unable to communicate the status of things, right? Their TPMs were unable to send up the ladder information about where their statuses are, where their timelines are, where things are aligned. And so what they did before Cardagraph is use a tool called Product Plan that a lot of you may be familiar with, right? To be able to plan out their quarters and update statuses and kind of send them up the ladder. But it's very manual, right? It's very time consuming. Again, 97% of all products managers spend more than 20% of their time doing things like going into product plan, updating statuses, right? They're slacking around, they're talking to people, they're digging through Jira epics, right? They're learning Azure DevOps so that they can kind of get in the weeds and understand where things are at. And so that's a lot of time, right? On something that is very manual and is not adding a lot of value to your customer base, right? And that's truly what you want to do as product leaders is add value to your customer base. On top of that, 38% of all people that we've been able to survey say that it's more than 50% of their time. I mean, if executives truly knew that 50% of a product manager's time is spent being really a project manager, things would not always be going well, right? And so how can we free up that time? How can we, allow you to be more productive, more effective as a product leader using AI? So time, right? We're saying that you're spending 20% to 50% plus of your time doing things that's not producing a ton of outcome, right? So you've probably heard of the 80-20 rule to an extent somewhere, right? And so it's saying that 20% of your time produces 80% of your results. Okay, so if we're able to break that down into the daily tasks of a product manager, right? On your 50, 20 to 50% of your time is spent updating timelines, updating roadmaps, manual data entry, having to go into these tools and work for them to keep them up to date and work for them to be able to get value back out of those road mapping tools. When really 80% of the value that you're providing and that these product teams are providing is done in 20% of the time, right? 20% of the time, whether it be um, working with different parts of the organization, engineering, design, UI, UX, QA to get things released, or working with customers and being able to bubble the right things up to the top, being able to understand where they're getting confused, where they're getting pain points, so that you can lower churn, right? And so that's the kind of stuff that you're doing in 20% of your time that produces 80% of the results. And along with that, there's good money to be made out there as a product leader. And so taking averages from Glassdoor, Product School, and ZipRecruiter, on average, a base level product manager is making $136,000 a year, which, in today's age, maybe you're living in poverty in some places, and maybe you've got a mansion in another place. It's wild how things are so different in different places. I mean, Dan, in New York, 136, you can maybe get a studio, right?
I mean, yeah, it depends where you want to live. It's more likely that you're gonna have some roommates. I think that's
Yeah,
the outcome.
right. And it's wild. So I'm in Lehi, Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, and it's quickly become very unaffordable for those making 136,000. But Texas, I don't know. Maybe some of you guys are outside of Dallas. I get Instagram ads, I swear, every single day of houses in Dallas, Texas. It's like this is 30 minutes outside of Dallas, and it costs $300,000, and it's this big, beautiful mansion. So 136,000, take it or leave it, based on how much you think it is, right? But if we cut that in half and say, hey, 50% of that salary is going towards stuff that is not adding value, then obviously it adds up. And so we need to figure out, how do we do more of the 20% of work, right? I know it doesn't make sense in your head, and it doesn't make sense in mine either. How do we do more than 20% of the work that actually leads to these positive outcomes? Because that's really what we need to be doing, is leading to positive outcomes instead of being a glorified project manager. So I'm going to take you all through a little project, if you must, right? So we're going to say, hey, Dan, you are in New York City, right? I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. If we were to drive from New York City to Salt Lake City, I mean, everyone out there listening, how long do you think, just off the top of your head, it's going to take to drive from New York to Salt Lake? Right, and it's
I'm gonna
probably
guess
a
at
long
least
time.
2 days. Yeah, at
Yeah,
least
it was
two
2 days. I
continuous
mean,
days.
it's probably a long time, right? We don't know. No one knows off the top of their head, unless they did it yesterday, how long that's going to take. Dan, you say 2 days, for example. I'm sure that's pretty normal among kind of everyone listening. It's going to take a long time. It's the other side of the country, right? And the thing is, how are we coming to that conclusion? Are we, kind of just guessing? If we wanted to get a more accurate update on things, you'd probably pull up a map like this. Maybe if it's 1990, if it's 1980, you're going to pull up a map like this, right? And you're going to say, okay, let's see, as we drive through Dayton, like on this slide, the speed limit's going to drop from 70 to 65 as we're going through the city. Okay, let's calculate that. And now let me go get my ruler and see how many inches is equal to 10 miles, right? Or however you want to set this up. Like, this isn't even MapQuest, guys. Like, this is like a paper map that you're trying to understand. You're looking up speed limits. You're calling your buddy that has driven through Missouri before and saying, hey, what's the speed limit in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, right? That's the only way to be able to gather this data and make somewhat of an accurate guess. But right now, Dan, you say it's going to take 2 days. Maybe that's because, for example, you've driven to St. Louis before from New York, and it took 1 day, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's about double that, right? So it's going to take 2 days. That's how we're guessing on how long it takes to drive somewhere. So a little bit of a spoiler, that's how we're guessing how to plan projects where they're at, right? as you start driving from New York to Salt Lake City, how how do you know how much longer you have? How do you know, what it's going to take? And so you're again having to write down mile markers and things like that. So insert Google Maps, right? I just pulled up on my phone. It's Apple Maps, not Google Maps. I don't know. Maybe there's some haters out there. It's just easier, guys. Okay. But it says it'll take 1 day, 8 hours, right? So it's roughly half of what you'd guessed, right? Now, how does Google Maps know that it takes 1 day, 8 hours? I mean, do you have any guesses, Dan? Since I got you on the line here.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they've got access to all of the data around
Sure.
not only some of the speed limit information and the optimal routes, but also traffic. So obviously that's in this moment, it would take that amount of time. But if we were to start at whatever midnight Eastern, it might take less because there's less traffic. Um, yeah, I mean, they might even have information about how fast you drive personally and be factoring that
Yeah.
in. I wouldn't be surprised.
They probably know your voice. They probably know where you live, right? I mean, gosh,
Yeah, yeah.
they know what music you like. But really, the core of it is they understand historically how long it takes to drive this stretch of road based on all the data they have historically of people driving that stretch of road, right? And then once you start driving, it's gonna take into account your speed, right? How fast you're going. Dan's a speedster. I can imagine he's probably going 10, 20 over to try and cut that 1 hour and 1 day and 8 hours in half. And so it's doing this and it's updating, right? Your time is updating, your ETA to Salt Lake City is updating as you start driving, right? You're not again, you're not having to manually go in and say, "Hey, I'm going this fast, Google, by the way, let me enter it into your system and send it to you," right? It's a waste of time. Can't we just have Google's AI do that for you, right? It's automatically doing that for you. It's learning artificially how fast you're going. It's learning what patterns in traffic happen around that area. And so it's doing it automatically for you. So long-winded story, right? Hopefully you guys were at least entertained for a little bit and got your wheels spinning a little bit. Because how in the world does this have, what does this have to do with products, right? What does this have to do with the product development life cycle? So now, how do we use that same thought process into the PDLC? Okay, so we've learned that planning a road trip using no data, using no help, just kind of a paper map. Again, not even MapQuest. I don't know how old our demographic is here, Dan, but hopefully they understand what MapQuest is. Maybe.
Yeah, they maybe their parents printed out some directions on MapQuest when they were taking road trips.
Right. Oh my gosh, and don't take a wrong turn when you're using MapQuest. All right, believe me. But this isn't even MapQuest, right? This is how you're planning your PDLC right now. You're using a paper map, and you're guessing that it'll take 2 days to drive from New York to Salt Lake City, right? So how what can we do to automate that stuff away, right? So what Google has done, Google and Apple Maps have done, they said, well, hey, we're tracking you. We know historically how things have gone, and we're tracking you on your drive. You don't have to tell us everything you're doing. You don't have to spend 20 to 50% of your time on your trip updating me on where you're at. I already know where you're at, and I already know how fast you're going, and I already know historically how long the rest of your road is going to be. You don't have to tell me. If I'm Google Maps, you don't have to tell me that. So what things can we automate away in the PDLC that's taking up all that time, that's taking that 20% of time? For 97% of product managers, what can we automate away? So there's, got to be something, an end to get, right? With Cardagraph, we help you get to that end, obviously by automating these manual tasks away. It's these manual tasks are things like data entry into your product roadmap. You know what you're building. Now what? You've got to start planning things out. You've got to start guessing how long they're going to take. And then they start going, and you have to move things around, right? You're going up, you're dragging that Gantt chart around every single day for some people, every single week, because things are always changing after you start the project, right? So what can we automate away? We can automate away that those inputs, dragging things around, creating your own forecasting algorithms. One of our customers at Cardagraph, Instacart, when we first met them, they said, "Yeah, we're exporting our Jira data," and I Googled an algorithm to be able to use so that I could understand when we're going to get to the end, when we're going to be able to get this release out, right? Trying to manage their release cycles as a product organization manually, right? And for them, it's taking that 50% plus of their time, exporting their data, trying to put it into Excel, put it into Google Sheets, looking up different algorithms, right? Other things that we can automate away besides that is tracking story completion rates and progress, right? Again, like Google Maps, you're not having to track how far you've been. It's just going to tell you how far you have left based on that data. Update meetings galore, right? They happen. It's a standard thing. Once a week, you have a status update meeting. Halfway through the sprint or at the end of the sprint, you're updating how things went, how far over you were, how scope increased, these different things, how you didn't have as much capacity available as you thought you'd have, these different things that affect that planning and product delivery and release process. Yeah, meetings, updating things, seeing it, going into Jira and saying, hey, how many stories are now in progress? How many are in QA? What does that mean, right? All of these things are manual tasks that a smart tool can automate away, right? So a smart tool, for example, the only one out there is Cardagraph, that is able to automate these tasks away. So what that means is now you have time to do things that are important. Over time, product leaders have slowly been turned into project managers. That's why we see at some companies cutting product organizations in half, sometimes cutting them completely and leaving things to the technology team and the PMO and program management team, because they've turned them into project managers that live between business and engineering, which we need that level between business and engineering. We need product managers to be able to have the time to work on the right stuff instead of being these program project managers that are able to add value a little bit at a time, right? So now what, right? We can automate that stuff away. What does an interface look like that can give me these answers at all times, right? So obviously, this is the only little look I'm going to give you. It's Cardagraph because I don't want to bore you with what you didn't sign up for. But definitely hit me up after this, guys. I mean, I got you, okay? But this is one look, one view of a roadmap that's new, that just gives you all the answers right away, at all times, in real time. I didn't even build this portfolio. I didn't even build this list. This came right over from Jira as things got added. This is updated every day. It has the true progress, not based on what engineering is telling you, not based on story points, but the true progress. It has, your date that you were trying to hit. This one says, September 13th, they had a release, right? They were trying to hit that release date to get all the way through. Product management is on the hook oftentimes for what the timelines are, in relation to planning the roadmap, not necessarily in relation to different tasks and things that engineering are working on, but to plan things out and understand what they can get done and when they can get it done. So they're hoping to have all of this done by September 13th. You can see this is probably something you would see all the time. A lot of red, right? And you're saying, yeah, engineering can't get anything done. And engineering's pissed off at you guys for saying that, you had room for it, right? There's so much that goes into it between capacity and planning and sizing that the Cardagraph handles as well. But this is a view that automatically was built. Cardagraph's AI and algorithms automatically build this view, automatically understood what your ETA is and updates it every single day, just like Google Maps is going to update your ETA as you're driving through. So now what, right? Okay, I got rid of all that project management garbage that no one likes to do, but we have to do anyways because we're the people between business and engineering. So now what? You get to do the stuff that actually matters now to your customers, right? Obviously your customers care about their timelines and they care about if things are going to ship and so that they can up contract. Your CFO cares so you can realize revenue. But now you get to focus on customer insights. You get to focus on prioritization. You get to focus on ROI. You get to focus on planning. Okay. And there's a whole new set of AI tools here, right? Like I said, product board pulse, customer insights. We personally at Cardagraph, what we use is Apollo. So Apollo is technically a sales outreach tool that started in our sales department and has now spread across the organization. And how we use that again is we use their AI to pull from our conversations top pain points that our customers have with our product, top pain points that we're not solving for that maybe we could dive into a little bit more. Maybe we can invest here and create a whole new line of revenue, right? And that's what product teams need to be doing, and that's what we're doing here at Cardagraph is using these other tools to be able to again have the right things bubble up to the top, and then we put them into our Cardagraph portal. We have our customers vote on them, right? And we're able to understand the right things to build and the right avenues to go for. So now that you're able to use AI in a different way, right? Cartograph isn't talking about AI that is LLMs and these different models to learn from your content, right? What Cartograph's AI is doing is actually learning from your processes and actually adjusting machine learning type things and understanding more what can be done and keeping everything updated automatically for you so that you can have your time back, right? It's AI that's actually giving you time back instead of answering questions and giving you time back in that way. So that is exactly what our customer base is doing, right? They are getting that 20 to 50% plus of their time back to their product team so that their product team can actually be product managers, can actually be product owners, can be product leaders, and are able to go out and do that without being handcuffed by the project management of it all. That is, like I said, that is how our customers are saving 20% plus, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50% of their time by using a different view on AI for product teams that is able to automatically do things for you that allow you to do what only humans can do, right? A thing that I like to say is Cartograph is the robot that does what robots can do, right? And so you can do what only humans can do. So that is kind of my outline of how we're able to save that time for our customers using AI, and hopefully it's able to give you an idea and some insight into different angles, other than LLMs, other than summaries, which we use at Cartograph. We use other tools for that, but a different angle on how important algorithms and machine learning can be in saving time for product managers using AI. So I will leave it at that for now. Dan, you are the man, and you get to take over here and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, it's super helpful, Spencer, and thanks for taking us through that. I think it's really interesting to talk about opportunities people have to think about new ways of working and managing some of the tasks, like you said, that are not the, most enjoyable parts of our jobs, maybe, among the most tedious and you could argue lowest value, but I would say are still important, right? Obviously you need to have a roadmap that's up to date to be able to communicate and align stakeholders and track your own work. So knowing that, AI is helping to make that easier, and we've got dedicated tools in the market like Cardagraph and others supporting that. Like, I think that's great information for our audience. I'm also interested in some of the other solutions that you started talking about, things like Apollo for extracting insights from different calls and things that your teams are taking with your customers and prospects. I'm curious, I would imagine for you guys as a company that's built on servicing the product community with AI powered tools, I would expect that within your company, you've got a culture of using AI, probably dogfooding your own tool, but using other tools as well to make yourselves more efficient. Just from a culture standpoint, what does that look like? And how do you as a leader of the teams kind of encourage your team members to, take advantage of these types of capabilities and try to be more efficient in their day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, we're a company that uses AI to help other companies get back their time. Of course, we're going to dog food our own tools, right? Of course, we're going to explore what else is out there, right? The most obvious one that we use, and I imagine most of you are or should be using, is Copilot, right? Our CTO here at Cardagraph is maybe the most brilliant guy I know. He's got a PhD in data science. He's able to build this AI, to build this machine learning, to build these algorithms, and yet he still is a proponent of different coding help like Copilot, right? And then on top of that, we're using Apollo for our product organizations. We're using Apollo for our sales organizations, right? So that I'm able to go and look at a recording that a rep may have done and automatically see, where they were lacking or where they crushed it with that customer. And then I'm able to go in and search and say, okay, how have we been able to use that in our product planning? How have we been able to use that across the sales organization? And is that something that we need to bubble up and be concerned about? And then obviously, as any company again, I think should be doing is the Chat GPT is a valuable tool, right? Whether it comes from building out a template for a case study or building out an early version of a PRD that we can go in and tweak, right? It's something that saves time and could be looked down upon, but there's no reason to, because why would we not go in and save time? And a lot of these features are things that we're exploring on adding into our own platform, right? The ability to maybe create these PRDs from your code or different things that AI is able to do, and tools that we're using that we can take ideas from and learn how our customer base could use them as well, and potentially add them into our tool.
Yeah, that's great. And it's helpful to hear some of those specific use cases that you guys have landed on. I'm curious, like, how did those come about? Was that, one kind of enterprising product manager just tinkering and then sharing their insights, or was it more of
Yeah,
a kind of dedicated initiative internally to, trial these things and see where they worked, where they didn't? Like, just curious how you guys arrived at some
yeah.
of these use cases.
Yeah, of course. Our company is lucky to have such a great leadership team, and I think that instead of maybe a TPM or someone tinkering around, it really has come from the top. So my co-founder and our CEO Bentley, he has taught me, and obviously it is spread throughout the entire company, that tools like ChatGPT are helpful in a myriad of different ways, right? Like I mentioned, from helping create a PRD to helping create case studies to coming up with questions for focus groups, right? There's these and going through and saying, hey, how do I sell to this persona, right, for our sales team, and getting ideas from that. It's not going to be the end all be all for almost anything, right? But it's going to give you this starting point. And because we are such a kind of leading edge innovative company here at Cardagraph, we believe in using those other resources around AI available to us, because there's no point in typing up an entire case study outline from scratch when you can get 60% of the way there with a simple prompt. So it's really come from the top down, which we're really blessed to have.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think I'm sure a lot of folks on the call are wishing maybe they had leadership teams who are as forward
Come on, work
thinking
for us,
as
guys.
yours.
Come on.
But I do think, just hearing some of these use cases, it should, folks should feel encouraged to try this stuff on their own and push to see what works for themselves or for their colleagues. I do think there's a good opportunity there. Um, to that point, you kind of started alluding to this a little bit, Spencer, but obviously we're trying to achieve that right 80-20 balance and invest, like you said, more in the 20% that yields 80% of the productivity as PMs. At the same time, you talked about the data showing that PMs are spending 20, maybe up to somewhere 30, 40, 50% of their time on these kinds of roadmap updates that Cardagraph and other tools like it help automate. That still leaves a delta where there's some time that we could also work on cutting to really home in on that 20%. So I'm curious, like, where do you see the best opportunities outside of automating roadmaps for AI to help save time for product managers?
Yeah, and this is a fun one for me, right? Because this is something that we talk about, daily here at Cartograph. It's K. What we've done over our first 6 years has been great, and we've expanded, great over the last 12 to 18 months. And we're really kind of starting to go mass market and get these marquee customers. And so, what's next? What's the next thing that we can do? And there's a lot of tools out there that are doing things, even Figma, right? They're doing design to codes type of things that are interesting. I think some other areas that are maybe even more interesting is something like a PRD to a code template, right? So being able to you know first help making that PRD help these product managers again in an area where robots can help, right? You don't need to have this creativity and this human intelligence to be able to create a rough draft of a PRD, right? So we start there. Obviously, maybe potentially give you an outline there. You go in, use your human elements to really beef that up, and then potentially, what if we were able to submit that in and say, hey, write a wireframe for us, right? What if we were able to, from that PRD, just click a button and say, hey, what do I need to do to plan for this release, right? And then it just goes and does it for you, right? So from a PRD, what if we're able to submit it and have that whole entire release planned from research to design to product management, development, QA, beta, right? That whole process. If we're able to make a bigger impact there, to to really automate, more than just the manual tasks that a product manager is doing, but more so the entire release process. I think that that's an area that is really enticing for us to continue to explore.
Um, yeah, that's very interesting and very compelling and kind of leads me to a topic that I wanted to broach with you around just the future of product management. I'm sure there's a decent amount of overlap here between the audiences of Lenny's podcast, product podcast on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and the products.com community. I'm sure that we've got a bit of overlap in our Venn diagrams here. And I was following some of the content that came out of Lenny's summit, Lenny and Friends Summit recently. And one of the talks that caught my attention was one led by Claire Vo, CPO at LaunchDarkly, also founder of Chat PRD. and she was talking about how product management is a dying profession and basically laid out the case for how in a world where more design is driven by agents, more coding is driven by agents, the actual role is to find people who are a little bit more technical, maybe a little bit more design oriented, but also adept at using these suites of capability to produce working software in a way that's different, obviously, from the role of a product manager today, who's coordinating different stakeholder groups to deliver an outcome that's based on multiple inputs. So just curious. I know it's a little bit long-winded, but this
Yeah.
is something I'm sure you guys are thinking about because obviously, it affects your target market in a pretty fundamental way. How do you see product management evolving in light of AI, and do you see the role changing so substantially that one might call it dying?
Yeah, very interesting question, right? Because uh, there are so many different opinions that are people are saying product management's dying for this reason, for that reason, for this reason, right? AI, blah blah blah. And yeah, we overlap a lot with Products Account, Product School, Lenny. I mean, all these organizations are we're very aware of them. They're aware of us. With Product School, we have a Prodi Award that we just received, and so we're really plugged in here, right? And what's interesting is where my mind personally goes, and I know that there's not a lot of people that would agree with me, is that people say product management is dying because there's such a heavy lean on product managers being project managers. Again, kind of going back to what we're trying to get product managers out of is being those project managers, right? Because you know people are saying, and including myself, right, in the future with maybe AI written code, you're still going to need these integrator roles, which are going to be more technical, product managers helping to integrate things. But there's always going to be a need for product management because of the lack of understanding that comes between engineering and business, right? And so if we can help facilitate that mutual understanding between engineering and business, using tools like Cardagraph for these product leaders, I don't think product management is dying. I think the old ways of product management, where you do customer interviews and you manage a roadmap and you work cross-functionally between a handful of teams on making sure dependencies get done and communicating, throughout. I think that version of product management is dying, yes, because there is such a need to have, TPMs. There's a need for very strong design and very good UX UI. And so, as far as product management being, on track to dying, my personal opinion is the way product management has been going the last 5 years or so is dying, because it's been great in the last 5 to 10 years to see CPOs getting a seat at the table, right? That's a very positive thing, and I don't think that's going anywhere. I know a handful of companies would disagree with me there, but I think more and more product is going to continue to get more of a seat at the table, to continue to have more and more CPOs. So would that mean product management is dying or growing, right? And so I believe that it's growing, but just in a different way than has been done in the last 5 years.
That's a really interesting answer. I've got a couple of follow-up questions. I'm also going to invite
Yeah,
anybody
sure.
who's got questions to drop them into the chat. We're happy to address those here. Um, but so that is interesting insofar as you start to allude to maybe just some changes in the job description, right? And that kind of brings about some changes to the skill set that's going to be required to be effective going forward. So, we're here to talk about kind of being or using AI to be a more effective product manager today, but what should we be talking about in terms of building skills around AI that'll be transferable in the future?
Yeah, of course. So kind of coming back to the integrator aspect of things, right? And using AI to integrate code with a code base, right? It sounds very technical, because it is very technical. And I think that product management is going a little bit more in a technical direction as opposed to a creative and design direction that historically I personally have wanted it to be from our own product managers, just because of the way that I think. But in regards to kind of the job description moving forward, I think that yes, more technical as always. I'm always trying to be more technical every day, and I'm a non-technical founder, and so I think that that's a positive that kind of everyone should take. But more so, I believe that product managers will be more valuable than ever because of the human element, the human reasoning that is so needed when using AI, right? One example that some of you guys may have seen. Also, I did notice there's a question. There's a hand going up a couple times there by our friend named iPhone. Um, but before we get to that, there was when Google launched their AI summary at the top, right? You could just a few months ago, you could search, how to make chocolate chip cookies, and it would say, put 2 cups of motor oil into a bowl, and these crazy things that AI just doesn't reason are wrong, right? Instead of vegetable oil, it's motor oil, and they're like, yeah, it's a different kind of oil, right? And so product managers are always going to have that reasoning.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we've got a question here. The question is, can this AI work with campaigns? I just asked to clarify what we mean here by
Yeah.
campaigns. Um, Not sure if that one resonates with you, Spencer. If not, we can maybe get some clarification and
Yeah, let's get some clarification there, but maybe how I'm interpreting it is campaigns meaning releases, right? Because we do have a lot of customers that focus on their different releases, their different initiatives, right? Their different campaigns that they're focused on being able to understand, hey, can we fit everything into this next release that we're doing? Can we plan out release by release or sprint by sprint or initiative by initiative? And yes, that's the kind of stuff that this was built for.
got it. Yeah, I think that's helpful. Cool. Feel free to drop some clarification in, but otherwise, hopefully that was a helpful answer. Um, we've got another question here. What are you building right now
Yeah.
that might be exciting for potential customers?
Yes, great question. So what we're building right now is actually really exciting and starting to get into expanding our abilities around release management, release planning, all the steps that go into it, right? From gathering feedback and being able to understand what customers need to getting the right approvals, right? Building out a whole workflow, a whole process to be able to get the right approvals from the right people, to understand, hey, can Cardagraph's AI say predict how long it's going to take in the research section? Can it predict how long it's going to take in beta? And then post release, what is gonna be needed. And so we're building out this whole workflow process that's really exciting, that we will start some marketing around here in the next month or so that I want you guys to keep an eye out for.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Spencer, and thanks, Bentley, for the question. We got another question here. I think it's a really good one. As a newer product manager who comes from a client engagement background rather than a technical one, what would you recommend to brush up on or get involved in, given it sounds like we are moving towards a more technical PM future potentially? Thanks in advance.
Yeah, thank you for the question, anonymous attendee. I wish you had your name so I could call you by name. But that's exciting. I'm excited that you're a new product manager. I'm excited that you come from client engagement because uh, I believe that those people can be even more helpful than technical people at the right time, Alina. Um, and I say that because I believe product management is so important to be the middle ground between engineering and business, right? Um, Again, myself, I don't have a technical background. I have really awesome people around me that are super technical, super smart, and can handle that load. Where I add value is by being that communication, that kind of translation layer between engineering and business. Because at the end of the day, 99% of all business results are gonna come from engineering. That means 99% of all business results are going to come through product to business. And so being able to understand how important that role is in being that translation layer, and in being able to correctly manage things from idea all the way through release, um, is vital. And again, that doesn't take a technical know-how. It takes someone who is able to, be somewhat humble, but a really great communicator, and someone who is really focused on the end goal. And the end goal is always going to be to create more customer delight and to create more revenue out of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Lena. That's a really good question. I think really important for all of us. Again, like we talked about earlier, it's not only about how do we kind of do the current role more effectively. Obviously, that's important, but another angle, how do we get ahead of changes and prepare ourselves to, thrive going forward? I think that's another big opportunity, a great topic for us to cover. I know we're sort of approaching the end of our webinar here. Please feel free to drop any other questions that you might have here in the Q&A. Got a few minutes to address them. Just while folks are thinking, I wanted to ask Spencer, as you're doing your research and kind of getting some inspiration about where to go next with your own product or your own internal operations, do you have any resources that you would recommend to the audience for them to use to get up to speed themselves?
Nothing specific, but what I will say is, I'm a big Ted Lasso guy. So if you haven't watched Ted Lasso, go watch it. Apple TV Plus. I'll give you my login if you need it because it's worth it. But in Ted Lasso, his big thing is to always be curious. Always dig a little bit deeper into the problem, into the solution, and be curious about it. Right? In particular at Cardagraph, we always want to try new tools, right? We always want to try new and better ways to do something. So as far as resources, I don't have one off the top of my head, but we're always curious, right? We ask our customers what they're using, and our customers ask us, right? I got a sale for Apollo recently that they should probably give me some kickback on, but they, having a culture of always being curious and always wanting to learn more is just super valuable.
Cool. I think that's a good note to end on. I really
Yep.
appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much again, Spencer. Where can folks find you if they have future questions or want to connect?
Yes. Yes, of course. So I am what my co-founder makes fun of me as a LinkedIn influencer. I would not call myself that. I have like 15,000 followers. I don't know if that's a flex or saying I'm not cool. But LinkedIn is a great place. My name is Spencer Jack. Uh, I do have two first names. It's kind of like Ricky Bobby. You may call me Jack, and I won't even get mad. But I'm Spencer Jack on LinkedIn. Um, and cardagraph.com, Cardagraph, is where we live. You can sign up for a demo and actually really see the product and dive into it a little bit more. If you're lucky, that demo will even get assigned to me at times. So I would love to meet you. But yeah, LinkedIn, Spencer Jack, co-founder of Cardagraph, is a great place to reach me, and I look forward to it.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much again, Spencer, for joining us. Thanks everybody on the line for spending their evening with us here. Today, we're going to be posting this recording shortly. If you want to revisit any of the content or share it with your network, we always appreciate that. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks all.
And thank you so much for having me. Thanks, guys.